Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
The other day I got an article off the Cyblog newsletter. Many of you know that I subscribe to Cyblog, which is, they put out daily content, which is really just summarizing psychology research literally from around the world. The guy who puts it together, his name is Jeremy Dean, PhD. He's a psychologist, and he's over in the UK, but he's constantly coming up with different things. It's very intriguing for those who don't know. I'm really into the science of networking, professional relationships. I think there's a lot there. But recently he put something out, and the title of it is "This Way of Socializing Cuts Depression in Half." Depression risk in half, I should say. And he goes on to share in there, they did this study, and what they found was that regular face-to-face communication, which can be certainly in person, but can be via Zoom, Skype or Teams or whatever you use, cuts the risk of depression in half. Just having those regular face-to-face communications. And they did this, and they compared this to phone and email. And phone and email just don't have the same effect. And what I love about this is it really underscores the power of video. Really, I mean, sharing ourselves on video is just another way of communicating. Obviously, the video would be a one way of because people aren't communicating back. But there's just something to that. And with that, I reached out to somebody I've had on before. Paul Banks is back for a return trip to the podcast, and he's the founder of Javelin Content Management, where he helps businesses build trust and scale engagement through video. And he's got a background in video marketing, content repurposing, AI, and he works with his clients developing practical strategies for becoming successful with video. So, Paul, welcome back. We're going to geek out on this. You're into the science, when you're filling out your stuff, you said, here's some topics I could talk on, Frank. And then you said the science behind building trust with video. I'm like, that's it. That's it.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me back, Frank. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And you were working with somebody before when we first met, and we had a great conversation, and you helped them scale up their business with video, doing the things you're doing right now, and basically said, hey, guys, I've taken you as far as I can take you, or probably as far as you want to take them. You want to do your own thing. So anyhow, fill in the blanks.
I've had an incredible journey over the last 5 years. I can't take anything, like, it's been phenomenal, an absolute steep learning curve, but I've loved every minute of it. So 15 years in supermarket retail, from one end of that retail sector to the other, everything from logistics and warehousing to running stores and store leadership, and 10 years as a volunteer police officer, and then finally I got the opportunity to work an AI consultancy. Totally different, just something that was thrown my way. The door opened and I walked through it, and so pleased that I did. And we were trying to reach quite a senior audience, CEOs, executives of big enterprise business. All of a sudden, mega ticket price, super expensive technology, even though we were quite affordable compared to the rest of the market. Multiple stakeholders in conversations, lots of potential departments within a business that we could impact, and I quickly realized that outreach just wasn't going to cut it for us, because those people, even during COVID, didn't want to answer phones. They worked in call centers, a lot of them, contact centers. Yeah. They didn't want to answer their phones. They had somebody monitoring their emails for them. LinkedIn was only really used for catching up with what their peers were up to as a networking tool, not because they wanted to reach out to new people. And we discovered that because I didn't have a background in what they were selling, I couldn't really talk credibly on LinkedIn about the things that I was trying to sell. Like I was just I felt like an imposter, right? Like, because I had no credibility, I had no opinions, no experience, and yet my CEO had bags and bags of it. So I borrowed his credibility by putting him on video with a podcast. That worked to an extent, but it wasn't enough. Mm-hmm. And so we turned a long form video into lots of short clips and put that out across the team. And we created this, what I call a bee swarm effect, where people assumed that we were a much bigger business than what we actually were. And when I was contacting people, they'd heard of us, they were aware of us, and they were already open to the idea of having a conversation. Fast forward a couple of years, 2 years ago now, I left those guys with a $25 million pipeline. I've no B2B experience, no sales training, no marketing, nobody at that point, until about 2 years into that business, nobody above me to ask questions of. And we'd made this huge success, over the moon. But to your point, I kind of said to the guys, like, look, I want to go and help small business owners do this because there's got to be easier sales out there. This is mega hard. We've done it with the mega hard stuff. Surely we can do it with the smaller businesses that have a much easier threshold for sales. And so that was where we brought Javelin from. But it all stemmed from realizing I'd spent 15 years learning how people work, what makes people tick. So that was my background in marketing and sales, if you like, being on that front end, high pressure, lots of different environments. Why do people do the crazy things that we do? And that's, I was very fortunate during my time in that business to work with behavioral scientists, for example. And I remember going out to an Amazon warehouse as part of a package. I was the retail expert and talking to people about how behavioral science and psychology and neuroscience can help solve lots of businesses' problems, not just our own. And the more I thought about that, the more I realized how video has a psychological impact on the audience. And much to your point, Frank, like you're right. Any video that I put out on social media, technically it's a one-to-many relationship. It's not me having a sit-down Zoom call with you talking about life and talking about how things are going on. But it makes it super efficient for people at the same time, because all of a sudden you're networking with almost everyone who views that post, because you're giving a little bit of credibility out there, a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of awareness, and a little bit of authority about what you're doing. I just find it incredibly interesting to delve into the behavioral science and the psychology. So I love it. So thank you for having me on to get into it a bit deeper.
Yeah. As you're talking, I'm thinking, you're so right. I'll watch YouTube videos, different personalities on YouTube videos. And some of these people are relatively well known. And I feel like they're buds, right? Like we have this connection. And they don't know who I am. If I ran into them, if I sat next to somebody on a plane, I'd be like, oh my God, it's you. And they were like, what the hell? Can I move? But it does. It's just, we build these relationships with people. And it's, the other thing I was thinking is we as humans really think that we operate on free will. I'm just going to do I'm going to do whatever, I'm a free spirit. I just do whatever. In reality, we all have software, and some people's software keeps them operating on a very narrow path, right? The accountant's always going to wear the white shirt and the red tie or whatever it is. And then some people are a little more flamboyant and a little broader with what they do, but we still have these operating systems. And that's really what you delve into, what you use.
That's exactly it. And when I say I use it, right, I use it indirectly, right? Because it's not like I sit and think about it as I'm working on people's videos, right? Like
right.
It's something that I'm conscious of and aware of, and probably more so, like most business owners have no idea how they can use behavioral science to support what they're doing. Right. They don't understand how psychology can help them by understanding they get the idea and they like the idea, but they don't really know where to start with it. Or the interesting thing is that most people are already using elements of this anyway, right? It's part of our conscious. I mean, we're social beings. We're drawn towards stories. We're drawn towards being part of a tribe, even if it's remotely, even if the tribe's small. We're driven towards all of these things naturally. We can't help it. As a great example, I was talking with one of my graphics designer that I'm working with at the moment. Lovely guy. I've got a new client coming along. She wants to launch a podcast. So we're getting some brand design work done. And there's been a lot of backwards and forwards on the emails about this graphic design. And they'd already had a meeting in the first place, a virtual meeting like this. 5 or 6 emails backwards and forwards, 2 or 3 days, various versions of graphics going backwards and forwards. And eventually the designer just goes, do you know what? I think we should have another meeting and we should talk about this on a video call instead of backwards and forwards on the emails.
Yeah.
And within 15 minutes, they'd ironed out all the communication problems. They were on the same page, one more version, half an hour later, signed off, done. Brilliant.
Yeah.
And that for me is just the magic of video. But you're ultimately right, Frank. We do things based on our emotions and then we justify them with logic. But if anybody asked us, we only remember the logic part. We don't remember the emotion.
Yeah.
We think when we buy things, when we invest in things, when we spend time on things, it's about our feelings. And a friend of mine always tells me, Paul, sell the sizzle, not the sausage. Nobody cares about buying the sausage. What they want is the smell of the sausage as you're walking past, the anticipation of the juiciness inside it. What's in it for me? What am I going to get? What am I going to feel? And then once they've bought with that in mind, they'll go, yes, but the price was good. It was on offer.
Yeah.
There was 10 sausages in that pack. There'll normally only be 6. It's all that psychology. It's fascinating. It really is. We do some crazy things as human beings.
No, I mean, absolutely. And I mean, there's a ton of great books out there that start talking about these sorts of things. But let's pull it back to video here. And the behavioral science to video, and sharing out video as a means of this building trust.
Well, I mean, first of all, going back to the article that you brought to my attention for this whole conversation, Frank, right?
Yeah.
Like, being a business owner in 2025 is generally quite lonely for all of us.
Oh, absolutely.
Most people who are on LinkedIn, who are an entrepreneur or a business owner, are now working from home, which is a great idea, gives us lots of flexibility, but it is lonely, let's be honest, at times. And I've tried in-person networking, and I can take it or leave it because I don't find the quality of in-person networking is anywhere near as good as what I can get online digitally. So I love digital networking. I'm a shy introvert, believe it or not. I'm ADHD, so I don't get my energy from being around large groups of people. I like one-to-one, and I think the study's nailed on, right? So I do think that we get our social hit from even just a conversation like this, like you and I here right now. And when we see other people on the feed in our social media feeds, that's a little bit of that hit. That's what drives us towards watching those videos in the first place. It's satisfying our social curiosity. But then when you start to get into things like, the common ones that most people might have heard of, but maybe not sure exactly what they mean. So you've got the mere exposure effect, which is my favorite, right? And that basically states that the more people see you, the more they like you, and the more they'll trust you, even if what you're saying is utter garbage.
Right.
So there's always an unethical side to behavioral science as well, right? You can use it for good and you can use it for dark purposes. And every behavioral scientist will tell you you've got to have a really good ethical, moral compass in order to be a behavioral scientist, because there is a lot of power in this stuff. But whether they engage with your content or not, just the fact that they see you consistently in their feed means they'll start to trust you. Now, when I first left retail, the reason I took the phone call from the guy who I ended up working for was because prior to that, like everyone else, I'd used LinkedIn to keep up with my colleagues and people who I'd met. I don't even remember accepting his connection request, but he was there. And every time I opened LinkedIn, he'd posted a funny meme or a joke or a whatever. He had a comedy writer writing stuff for him at one point, and he's an ex-comedian himself. So his stuff was hilarious. And I always remember opening LinkedIn. He was the only funny thing on LinkedIn, and he really stood out. So when he said, Paul, do you want to have a chat? I said, yeah, of course I want to have a chat. It's the mere exposure effect. Like, he hadn't given me any reason to believe that he was an expert or somebody credible. I'd only read funny posts by him. But I was already intrigued and curious as to how he could stand out in that field, be consistently in my feed, and what did he want from me? I was curious. You've also got things like, sorry.
I was going to jump in on that. It's interesting because, excuse me, there are people who post all the time. Now, I don't know this person. I haven't seen his stuff, but none of his stuff, it sounds like, was, hey, look at me. Hey, buy from me. Hey, I'm great. None of it. He brought value to you through a smile and a chuckle, maybe a belly laugh from time to time. Whereas people, I think, try too hard with, hey, trust me, or I've got this, and we've got a special or whatever.
Yeah. But then when you combine something like the mere exposure effect with video where they are seeing a person, and I think this is where a lot of businesses miss out on, right? A lot of businesses hide behind a brand. They have a brand page. They're scared to post from their personal profile. They try not to be identified because they want to build a business. Well, that's great, but a business is the sum of its people. And what I speak to people about a lot is if you're in a crowded space, especially, this is really, really important. If somebody comes up against you and somebody else who offers very similar services or products, traditionally, that's a race to the bottom. Who's cheapest? Because I don't know anything about either of you. You both seem to offer the same services. I just want to know, what can I get for my money?
Right.
When you start to connect emotional knowledge with a business, with a brand, because you've met the people behind the scenes, you feel like you know them a little bit, even just a little bit.
Right.
All of a sudden, that changes the game altogether, because now it's not a race to the bottom anymore, because I trust this person a little bit more than I trust these people. And actually, I'm willing to pay a little bit more for that trust because what I'm doing is important to me. It's my business. So then you change from a race to the bottom to a race to value, and you've put yourself in pole position. And as humans, we're drawn to faces and features. It's inbuilt in our DNA. So I don't know whether you'll remember back in Manchester in the UK, we had some riots some years ago, not the recent ones. But 2008, 2009, I think it was around about then, we had some horrendous riots. And the way they solved a lot of the damage that was being done to shops was during the day, whilst the riots weren't happening, artists were asked to come out and spray paint babies' faces onto the shutters. Not because babies were, all right, there was a psychological element of nobody wants to hurt a baby, right? That was definitely there. But the babies' photos were all chosen because of the shape of their eyes, because they were the right aspect, the right ratio, that made people see it was a human. And it just raw, subconscious behavior. It's a human. I can't do any damage. I associate with that. There's a mental connection there. So the same applies to video. If people can see you, they can create an emotional connection with you. And when you combine that with things like the mere exposure effect, there's the availability heuristic, for example, where people find it easier to remember things that are easy to recall. Doesn't have to be that they trust you particularly, but just that you're easy to recall. So if you've got a face that stands out, you've got a voice that stands out, your message is consistent, you'll be top of mind and they'll come back to you because you're the most recent thing written into their memory bank. Consistency bias is kind of similar in nature to the mere exposure effect, where when somebody gives the same message every time you see them, what they say carries more weight. So they're saying the same, consistently saying, you need this. This is what the truth is. This is the facts behind it. This is what we do. This is how we do it. You need this. These are your problems. This is how you solve it. And you say that in 100 different ways. That consistency bias starts to help them build up trust in what you're saying because you're credible. And that's really, really important for people to be able to tap into. So that's just, there's loads and loads of behavioral science that I could delve into in great detail. So
yeah, I mean, there are people out there studying every one of the things you've talked about and all the other things you shared with me in your email. They're studying it every day. I mean, that's what they do.
Yeah.
It's, to me, it's fascinating. And I love the story about the baby's faces. I had not heard that, but it goes back to my point. We have this scripting, we have this programming that we just follow. Yeah. And I get a kick out of people who say they don't. Oh no, I don't. I can recognize bias. I don't succumb to bias. No, you do. So anyhow, let's shift gears here as we're kind of winding down. And I do need to, it's been a while since I've had you back on. I can see getting you back on and we could just really take a deep dive on some of these topics at some point in the future. But I want you to have the ability to talk about Javelin content management and how the audience can help you, what you're looking for. Appreciate your time. I'm sure there's somebody out there who, might be able to help you.
So what we do at Javelin, well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to do that, Frank. I appreciate the time and effort. And if you're watching along, thank you very much for watching what we've delivered so far. Javelin was set up to help busy business owners get back to doing what they do best. None of us, we were joking about bookkeeping before this episode, Frank. Yeah. None of us set out to do a lot of the things that we end up doing as a business owner. And yet people recognize the value of being on video. So there are a lot of business owners out there who are perhaps guesting on videos like this on podcasts, Frank, or maybe have their own podcasts, or they want to be on video and they're just not sure how, or whether they can, or whether they should. My job is to, first of all, help them figure out whether it is the right thing for them to do or not, because it's not always the right thing. But then to take as little of their time as possible and give them back incredible amounts of value. So, for example, a 20-minute video that someone might record with us is easier to record, ironically, than 10 2-minute videos. Right? A lot of people try and jump straight into the short videos. The long video feels a bit more conversational. It's a bit more like a conversation with a friend. And you might meander through that conversation a little bit. But what we do is take the golden nuggets from that and reproduce them in lots and lots of different ways. So, a client who works on 20 minutes video might get 200 digital files back to be able to use for their content for the next 4 to 6 weeks. Generally, the people that are looking for that sort of content are senior consultants, keynote speakers, authors, or executive coaches, because a lot of these people are trying to reach a very senior audience, and video is a fantastic way to draw that senior audience in and attract premium clients. The other sort of people that we're working with much more heavily now as well are podcast owners. So people who have either an idea for a podcast and have no idea how to launch it, let alone edit it or produce it, or they're successful business owners with a podcast and see the absolute value in their podcast, and yet client delivery keeps getting in the way. They're trying to edit it, but it's never a priority, and it's just, they're always too busy to do the job that they know it needs to have done with it. We're the people that kind of turn that around really, really quickly and give them, I wouldn't say 200 digital assets back. It's a bit overkill for a podcast episode, but a lot of assets that they can use across all of their social channels. So that's
right.
The whistle-stop tour of Javelin. Thank you very much for the invite.
Best way to get hold of you?
You can either drop me a message on LinkedIn, Paul-Banks 007, and that 007 was intentional because I'm helping you with that memory recall. Or javelincontent.com is our website. All my contact details are on there. Or just drop me an email, paul@javelincontent.com.
Sounds great. Hey, I really appreciate you taking the time to be on here. Great reconnecting, and we're going to do this again.
Always a pleasure, Frank. Always a pleasure. Lovely to be on your show, and thank you very much for taking the time to have me on.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AMSPIRIT.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.